A science story, huh?
These NYU scientists,
I felt
really
right.
I was so
And I just thought, well,
I had figured it out
It was that golden moment.
because science was on my side.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Story Clutter, where true personal stories about science help us to discover how weird, wonderful, and gross it is to exist in this world and be a human. I'm your host, Misha Gajewski, and today's stories are bloody brilliant. Literally. This episode is all about blood and guts. These stories are funny, involve bodily fluids, and are totally worth it. You're gonna love them. Let's get into it. Our first story is from lawyer and journalist Sean Musgrave. You might recognize him from his work in Politico, The Verge, Vice, or the Netflix docuseries How to Fix a Drug Scandal. His story was recorded last year at one of our go-to New York spots, QED Astoria in Queens, New York. Here's Sean.
It's 2006. I'm 16 years old, and I am walking into my very first blood drive in the suburbs of Tucson, Arizona, in a mall near our house. I'm going there with my mom. She's a nurse, and she's instilled in me and my siblings that at any point, somewhere out there, there is a patient who needs blood. And so giving blood is an easy way to do a good thing, maybe even save a life, while sitting in a recliner and sipping a juice box. So I get to the blood drive and I start filling out the intake paperwork. And I get to this question. Since 1977, have you had sexual contact with another male even once? This question was on the blood donor forms on all the blood donor forms at the time. Since the AIDS crisis, queer men had a lifetime ban on donating blood, or any guy who had explored this side of their sexuality even once. One bi-curious blowjob and no juice box for you. Now, at 16, when I read this question for the first time, I haven't had sexual contact with anyone, male or otherwise. Good evangelical that I am, I'm still a virgin, and I am incredibly repressed. I know, though, at 16 that I'm attracted to other guys, even if I can't admit it to myself or my family or the Red Cross. So I just check no sexual contact with males, no, ever. And I move on. And all through high school and college, I keep checking that box. Anytime there's a blood drive, I sign up to give blood, and I get to this question. And so essentially the Red Cross is checking in on me a few times a year to ask, like, are you still in the closet? And check. And it wasn't until the summer after college, summer 2012, that I finally admit to myself, like, after years of repression, like, yes, I want to hook up with men. So I get on Grindr and I delete it immediately. It is too much, too fast for my prudish former evangelical sensitivities. So I get on OkCupid, like a widowed retiree, just trying to find love again. And I find a cute guy. And romantic that I am, after we hook up, I basically move into his apartment the next day. And we've been together ever since. 12 years now. But from the first time that we hooked up, I can't give blood anymore. Even once is the rule. And so I actually had to come out, not just to my friends and family, but I had to come out to the Red Cross too. I had been such a faithful blood donor that they start calling me after a little while. And I dodge their calls for a bit, but then they just keep calling. And so finally I tell this poor Red Cross volunteer, like, listen, since the last time I gave blood, I've had sex with a man more than once. So I can't come back. Like that's the FDA's rule. That's not my rule. That like I can't come back. It was a horribly awkward phone call, and I stopped getting calls after that. And this was the rule, this total lifetime ban on donating blood for queer men for more than 30 years, from 1983 to 2015. And in 2015, the FDA like relaxed the rule a little bit. Turns out they needed the gay blood. So they like dialed it back a little bit. The rule changed from a lifetime ban to queer men being able to give blood if they hadn't had sex with another man for a year. So just like year-long dry spell and like, come on in. It's great incremental progress, but didn't do anything for me. It was a big victory for gay monks. Then in 2020, during COVID lockdown, there was a really big blood shortage. So the FDA shortened this celibacy period from a year to 3 months. Like, okay, great. Still didn't do anything for me. Finally, last year, May 2023, the FDA totally overhauls the rule. Guy on guy is totally fine now, according to the FDA. Love is love. You don't have to be straight or a gay monk to give blood now, but you do have to be what I call backdoor monogamous. By which I mean that in the past 3 months, you can't have had any anal sex with any new partners or multiple partners, like backdoor monogamous. And you also can't be on a drug called PrEP, which is an amazing drug that radically reduces your risk of HIV transmission. Now, my friends, I am that aggressively monogamous queer unicorn that the FDA has been looking for. I am so monogamous that I sometimes like sheepishly confess it to other queer people. It feels like kind of retro now. And even for some of like, I'm sure some of the straight people here in like open relationships or polycules or something, but super monogamous, backdoor and otherwise. And I'm also not on PrEP, which is an amazing drug, but it's for the homosexually adventurous, not for a monogamous man like myself. So I realized last year, like, oh, after a decade, like, I'm not excluded anymore. I can donate blood again. And I am just beside myself. I sign up for the first blood drive slot that I can get, and I start bragging to everyone. Like, I can give blood again. Like, I do an entire triumphant stand-up set at a gay bar in Brooklyn. Just like, I am going to drink enough juice boxes for all of you, people of good Judy. So last October, I go to the blood center around the corner from our apartment in Harlem, and I sit down and I start doing the intake paperwork. And that question that had hounded me for years, it's not there anymore. I proudly check those monogamous boxes, and I fill out the rest of my medical history. I can't remember my blood type anymore. It's been such a long time, but I do the best I can. And I give my paperwork to a technician, and she looks at my paperwork and she says, I'm sorry, you can't give blood today. And I had gone there prepared for an argument, like just in case the sexual history rules had not trickled down to the blood centers yet. But that wasn't the issue. She tells me, you're taking one of the medications on my list. Like, one of the drugs that you take can actually cause birth defects. So we can't risk giving your blood to someone who's pregnant. I'm sorry, like your blood's no good. And I'm stunned. Like, I've been spending the last decade meticulously tracking the FDA's stance on my sex life. And I have overlooked some pretty crucial fine print on one of my pill bottles, like birth defects. This was complete news to me. And I'm on a couple medications. So I ask her, like, well, which one? Folks, the drug that snatched the juice box from me, that stopped me from making queer history that day, was Propecia. Generic name, finasteride. Those of you who are not laughing don't know it's a hair loss medication. It's a tiny pill of my vanity and my fear of getting older and my desperate quest not to have my dad's hairline. That's what Propecia is. And so I'm mortified and I apologize and I leave. And walking home, I try to console myself. Like, maybe this humiliation I'm feeling with my shattered pride and my tainted blood, maybe this is still some small victory against discrimination. Like now, for the first time since coming out, it's not homophobic bigots or outdated rules about who I had sexual contact with even once or when, or if it was anal, which the FDA really cares about still. The thing keeping me from donating blood now, just like so many straight men in here, is my fight against male pattern baldness, not my queerness. Thanks.
Well, I'm glad the FDA changed its rule on gay men donating blood. It totally sucks that Sean still can't give blood if he wants to keep his hair. But to be fair, there are a lot of things that can exclude you from giving blood. Like up until 2 years ago, when the FDA changed its rules, I was also banned from giving blood because I lived in England during the mad cow times. Because apparently mad cow disease can crop up decades after exposure. So fun. Anyway, if you'd like to learn more about Sean, head over to our website, storyclatter.org. Being a storyteller on stage is just one way to make Storyclatter happen, but if sharing your story in front of an audience isn't your thing, maybe becoming a Storyclatter donor is more up your alley. Right now, the voices of scientists and science communicators need to be heard more than ever. At Storyclatter, we believe that personal stories can cut through the noise, connecting people to the human side of science, building trust, and making complex issues real. But we can't do this work without you. Storyclatter donors play an essential role in our ability to bring you this podcast, share these stories, and foster conversations that matter. If you believe in the power of science storytelling, please donate to the Storyclatter at storyclatter.org/donate. The most popular level is $10 a month, and you can make your tax-deductible donation at storyclatter.org/donate. But really, any level makes a difference, and we're so grateful to everyone who supports Storyclatter. Our next story is from wildlife biologist Molly Astell. Their story was recorded last year at Boise State University. Here's Molly.
So when I was 34, I was working with the California Condor Recovery Program. We were a group of about 15 or so people working to recover the endangered California condor. So we'd be out doing observations, monitoring the birds, doing health checks. And then we would also have these pre-release birds, which were captive bred juveniles. And we would release them into the wild to kind of help grow the population. So for these captive release birds, these pre-release birds, we kept them in this giant flight pen to kind of let them, get used to their surroundings before they're going to be released. And one of our job was to keep them well fed. And also, it's worth noting that they're about at this age where in the wild, normally the parents would still be kind of taking care of them, teaching them how to scavenge, how to find food, maybe give them a free meal or two. So to help get this done, we had this giant walk-in freezer, and we kept it stocked with about 20 or so calves, a couple dozen rabbits, maybe a few elk if we happen to have them. But that's kind of how we got that job done. It's also worth noting, condors are scavengers, they're vultures, they eat a lot of dead stuff, so hence all of the carcasses in the freezer. So at this point, I had been with the program for about 10 years or so, and it was nice because there's always somebody else in charge, and in my case, it was this big, intimidating guy who, just picture Sasquatch, but with blonde dreads. That's what he looked like. And he was always, so confident and decisive. But it was nice knowing somebody else was going to make the decisions. I just had to go do the thing. I didn't have to stress about it. So one day we're having our weekly Monday meeting, sitting around this big office table with a condor banner on it. It was pretty cute. And he announces that he's accepted another position, which leaves me in charge. I'm are you kidding me? I am the exact opposite of this guy. Like, I'm quiet, I'm shy, I'm introverted. I like to really think about things. I don't just make decisions. But I put on my best. I got this face, even though like deep down, I have to admit, I was really worried about how I was going to measure up. And like, I didn't want to fail my team. But fast forward a few weeks, everything's going good. Like, it's weird being in charge. And I'm out there on the refuge with my biologist, Erin, who I guess now I'm in charge of because that's my job. But anyway, we're getting ready for the pre-releases to come, just checking out, making sure everything's good, and we decided to go our separate ways for the day. So I get in my truck. It's a hot August day in Southern California, and I'm just kind of driving on my way out, and I pass our big freezer, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just like stop and make sure everything's okay. So yeah, I get out of my semi-air-conditioned truck, which is just barely functioning, and I step up to the freezer, and I just stop dead in my tracks, because what I see is the last thing you see before like the worst day on Condor crew. The thermometer doesn't say like 10 or 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It is way higher than that. And also it's worth noting, we haven't been in there for at least a week, and I do not know how long this thing has been down. So yeah, I'm not sure what's on the other side of the door, but it's not going to be good. And I'm also like, okay, like, what do I do? What do I do? Oh, right. I'm in charge. Okay. Let me think about this. So it seems logical. Like, first step, let's get a freezer repair guy out here. Yeah, that sounds good. So I head back to the house and I'm like Googling freezer repairman. And I found someone who's like an hour and a half away, because we are on a wildlife refuge in the middle of nowhere. Like, we don't even have an address. So I'm trying to get this freezer repair guy out to the refuge using like whatever directions I can try to figure out to get him out there. But we get that sorted. And then I call up Erin, and I'm like, all right, Erin, we have a problem. Freezer's broken down. And she is not happy. But she's like, okay, I'm going to head out there. We'll figure this out. So she's on her way. And I'm like, all right, what do I need to like make this work? And I'm like, okay, well, I have my carcass suit, right? I don't know if you all have a carcass suit, but my carcass suit is like this old tan denim one-piece zip-up thing, and it's got all these holes in it and some stains that I'm never going to get out of it, and I've had it since like 2007. I'm weirdly proud of this old thing. So I get my carcass suit on, and then as I'm leaving, I see these like bright green foam earplugs, and I'm like, oh, I could like stick those in my nose, and that'll help with the smell, right? Sure. So I grab those, I head on down to the freezer, and I step up to the door, and I'm like, all right, let's see how bad this is. And so I like start opening the door, and oh my God, the smell was so bad. And it was not even the smell so much as it just literally burned my eyes and throat. I've never experienced anything like this before. It was bad. So I shut the door. I'm like, oh my gosh, all right. Well, it's not my first freezer breakdown. We'll just somehow figure out how to clean this thing out. We'll dump everything at the carcass pit, and it's going to be fine. Let's just see how bad it is. And I opened the door fully, and sure enough, it's awful. There are bloated, decomposing carcasses everywhere, maggots everywhere. It's bad news. But I'm kind of like working through it in my head. And then finally, Erin shows up, and she's got her like much newer, nicer carcass suit on. And then she's got her N95 mask, and I just take one look at her, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. Okay. All right. We are dealing with a mess. I can tell from your expression you are not happy. But we get to work, because what else are we going to do? So we take turns just kind of like closing our eyes, covering our mouth, and running in, grabbing something, and then running back out. And it's rough, because sometimes you're just blindly running in, grabbing something, and it sort of like slips, and it takes a couple runs, or we're taking turns and like double teaming things, getting it out. And as we're going along, I'm still wondering about that freezer repair guy, and like, when is he going to get here? What if he gets lost? Like, what if he turned back? But finally I get a phone call from him, and he's at the gate, and I'm like, cool. So I head out to meet him, just kind of like an older, heavier set gentleman with his red hat. And I bring him up to the freezer, and I'm still wondering, like, is this guy going to take one look at this and be like, absolutely not? Because I would understand. But this guy is freaking superhuman. Like, he just casually rounds up all of his tools. He walks into the freezer and just starts tinkering with things. And I'm like, I can't even stand in there for 30 seconds. How are you doing this? And I'm looking at Erin, whose N95 mask has like slowly moved up to cover most of her face. And we're just like, all right, let's just keep going. So, we start cleaning out the smaller stuff, the bags of rabbits, the calves, until all that's left are 2 elk on the ground. And if you're not aware, elk are really big. I just asked Google, and Google says on the lighter side, they're like 700 pounds, but could be over 1,000. They're big animals. Luckily, one of them had been cut in half to make it a little easier to like pull out when we needed to. So we managed to like double team this and get half of the elk out. And then we go to get the second half, but it's like a third falling apart, a third liquefied, and a third just maggots. And it's not going anywhere. But right around that time, I hear the freezer motor start to kick in, and I'm like, oh, thank God. So we have the freezer up and running, and we just decide, you know what? Let's just let this elk re-thaw. We got most of it cleaned. We're in good shape. We're good to go. The other thing I should mention is that this is when our new releases were supposed to be delivered that day. So this was like very time sensitive that we get this done because we're about to have a bunch of hungry birds there right now. But we have most of it cleaned out. I managed to, call some folks, work it out, get a plan to have some food there for our new release birds that night. And so everything's pretty good, in good shape. And I go home, I take a super long shower, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, I might not be the best leader, but at least I know, like, I can get in there, get dirty, and get things done. And also I have folks like Erin working right alongside me with me, like, even if it feels like we're in over our heads. So in the next few weeks, we managed to go out, restock the freezer. The new releases were there. They did well. We were able to keep them fed. They were released into the wild. And also with the freezer working, a little bit of creativity, a couple of tow straps and 2 trucks, we managed to get the elk out of there. So that was good news. But yeah, I don't know, just kind of thinking back on it, it's definitely not the biggest challenge I have, but one of the stinkiest probably for sure. But it kind of makes you think how, it's not unique to wildlife or science, but you can't really control what happens in life. All you can control is like how you respond to things. So I won't forget this challenge or any of the other challenges that I've had. But I will say, if you guys ever need a messy freezer repaired, I do know a guy.
Wow, that was exceptionally gross. And honestly, while I like to think I have a strong stomach for gross stuff, that might have been a bit too much for me. But hats off to Molly. If you'd like to learn more about them, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Our website is just one way to connect with Storyclatter, but there's so many other ways, and we hope you'll use them all. You can always follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Head to storyclatter.org to become a financial supporter. If you're interested in coming to one of our shows, starting a Storyclatter show in your own community, or even learning how to tell your own science story, you can find everything you need on our website. Just a reminder, our Intro to Storytelling workshop has only a few spots left, so if you want to learn how to tell your own science story, don't miss your chance. The workshops are so fun, and many participants have said they're, and I quote, phenomenal. All the details about the workshop can be found at storyclatter.org/education. This podcast is produced by me, Misha Gajewski, along with Jen Chen, Nikisha Roberts-Washington, and Erin Barker, Executive Director and co-founder of the Storyclatter. The stories featured in today's episode were produced by Tracy Segarra, Grant Bowen, Mesa Salida, and Brian Kett. Special thanks goes out to Storyclatter's board and team. Our theme music is by Ghost, and next week we'll be back with stories about obsessive-compulsive disorder for OCD Awareness Week. Until next time, thanks so much for listening. Looking for a podcast that's both entertaining and actually useful? I've got you. All the Hacks is hosted by Chris Hutchins, a financial optimizer who's been everywhere, literally. He's traveled to 60 plus countries, racked up millions of reward points, and sold 2 companies. And on the podcast, he shares the hacks, tips, and tactics he's learned along the way to help you upgrade your life, money, and travel without spending more. I just listened to an episode about using loyalty points strategically for free travel because I love traveling, but it's expensive, you know? Anyway, after listening to this episode, I walked away with so many ideas that I could put into action immediately. And that's what I love about this show. Every episode gives you at least one tactic you can plug into your own life to make it better. From smarter spending to stress-free travel and next-level productivity, it's all practical, zero fluff advice from experts who know their stuff. So, do yourself a favor, search for All the Hacks, that's All the Hacks, in your podcast app, hit follow, and start upgrading your life today.